Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. The moment the bridal sedan touched the ground, word came that the groom had died. In the blink of an eye, I went from being a bride to the criminal blamed for his death. To atone, I handed over all my savings to his parents, endured everything without complaint, and took care of my sick in-laws in his place. I even worked to help his younger sister make a name for herself in the mortal world. But on the very day I was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and died from overwork and exhaustion, I saw my husband, dead for years, accompanying his first love to a prenatal checkup. Like a lunatic, I rushed up to confront him. He pushed me away in disgust and said coldly, "I just didn't want to marry someone I didn't love, so I faked my death and ran." Is that wrong? Besides the money you gave me to marry the woman I love, to take care of my parents, and to support my sister, that was all your choice. No one forced you. Rage surged through my chest and I spat out a mouthful of blood. But he only shielded his first love protectively and carefully walked away. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the bridal sedan. I don't know how long passed before I was jolted awake by the loud banging of gongs and drums. Everything around me was drenched in red. In that instant, I realized I had been reborn, back to the day that changed everything. The day I became a widowed bride. On that day, I had stepped into the bridal sedan full of hope. But as soon as the sedan landed, I heard the news of Jason Miller's death. I didn't even get to see him before his furious parents stormed in and beat me unconscious. When I woke up, everything had been decided. I was labeled the cursed woman who killed Jason and became nothing more than a servant in the Miller household. In less than 10 years, they had driven me into cancer. Thinking of this, I threw open the sedan curtain and shouted to the sedan carriers, "Turn this sedan around. I want to marry someone else." The moment I said those words, the noisy surroundings went dead silent. The matchmaker was stunned. "Emily, what kind of joke is this? We're already at the final stage. How can you change your mind now? Are you afraid of getting married?" "It's okay. Just sit back down," someone said. "Jason's such a good kid to you. You're sure to live a good life with him." Seeing the bridal sedan about to move forward again, I quickly cut in. "Take me to the Carter family on the east side of the village. If you do, I'll pay everyone double. But if you take me to the Miller house against my will, you're not getting a single cent. This entire wedding is paid for by me. You all know the Miller situation. I'm the one marrying in with money, not the other way around. And if I change my mind and refuse to pay, there's nothing the Millers can do." There was hesitation in the air, but my words were grounded in truth. In the end, they obeyed and turned the sedan around, heading in the opposite direction toward the Carter family home. Still, everyone found the situation strange. The music stopped and the atmosphere grew eerie and silent as we made our way there. The moment we arrived at the Carter residence, I jumped out of the sedan and stormed straight toward Ryan Carter, who was drinking heavily to drown his sorrows. Without giving him a moment, I shouted at him, "Ryan Carter, do you dare marry me?" Startled, Ryan choked on his drink and nearly passed out. He couldn't even get a word out. Right at that moment, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, along with Jason's younger sister, Amy Miller, came running over, panting and flustered. All three of them looked furious, especially Mrs. Miller, whose face was livid with rage. "Emily Carter, are you out of your mind?" she screamed. "Today is the day you're supposed to marry Jason, and now you're here. What the hell is this supposed to mean? If a neighbor hadn't seen you riding a bicycle over here and rushed to tell us, we'd still be sitting there like fools waiting for you. Get back right now. You're insane. One moment you want to marry my son so badly you're begging for it. And now you've changed your mind. If you're not ashamed, I sure as hell am. In my last life, I bent over backward trying to please the Miller family just to marry Jason. They never respected me, only ever treated me with disdain. A kind word from them used to make me happy for days. If I hadn't lived this life once before, I might be scrambling to win their approval again. But I've had enough. I've been through hell, and I've already died once. Pride means nothing to me now. So I walked around to stand behind Ryan Carter and gently patted his back. "Everyone knows Jason Miller never liked me," I said coolly. "Even if I married him, he wouldn't be happy. Isn't it better for both sides if we don't go through with it? The Millers looked like they were about to explode. The onlookers began whispering amongst themselves. Jason didn't seem all that into her, someone muttered. But he agreed to marry her. Isn't that enough? If you didn't want to marry him, you shouldn't have agreed. Why wait until the wedding day to back out? This is ridiculous. Marriage isn't a joke. You know, her parents died young. If they were still around, they would never have let her pull something like this. I didn't get angry hearing all this. Instead, I felt calmer. What they said wasn't wrong. My parents passed away when I was young, and because of that, I longed for a real family more than anything. But the Millers never treated me like family. They never would have. Then Mrs. Miller cut in sharply. Don't forget your parents' final wish before they passed was for you to marry Jason. Have you forgotten that? In my previous life, the reason I insisted on marrying Jason wasn't because I truly loved him. It was because I was trying to fulfill my parents' last wish. I compromised in every way for that wish. But I forgot something important. If my parents could see me now, they'd want me to be happy. Mr. Miller sighed and said, I know you look down on our family because we're poor, but there's a saying, don't look down on a poor kid. Jason's got talent. He just needs a chance. If you support him, he'll definitely give you a good life. The moment Mr. Miller brought up money, the crowd got even more riled up. They looked at me like I was backing out of the marriage just because the Millers were poor. I let out a cold laugh. I kept quiet before out of respect for your family. But don't act like I don't know what's going on. You knew Jason didn't like me. Yet you pushed this wedding forward anyway just to get my money. You even made me think Jason had feelings for me. But it's a new era now. Marriage is about freedom of choice. Jason Miller and I aren't married yet. I can marry whoever I want. I kept speaking with conviction, my voice steady and clear. Soon others in the crowd started chiming in, backing me up. If they don't like each other, then just don't get married. What's the point in making such a scene? Amy Miller was furious. She didn't argue with the crowd but turned to me and said sharply, Emily Carter, I don't know what kind of nonsense you're pulling, but everyone knows how much you liked my brother. Even if you're backing out now, do you really think Ryan Carter would want to marry a fickle woman like you? One who jumps from man to man? Before her words had fully landed, Ryan rasped out in a hoarse voice, I would. Even though I had guessed that would be his answer, hearing him say it aloud still brought tears to my eyes. In my past life, I became a cursed widow. Everyone said I was bad luck, that I brought death wherever I went. First, I cursed my parents to die. Then I cursed my new husband. So aside from being tortured by the Miller family, I was also scorned, mocked, and bullied by nearly everyone in the village. Only Ryan didn't see me that way. He was educated, the only college graduate in the village. And he always told me, a person's fate is in their own hands. It's not determined by the heavens. Your parents' deaths, Jason's death, none of that was your fault. It had nothing to do with your destiny. If you can, I hope you'll forget about being a widow. Break free from the cage you've built around yourself and start over with someone you love and who loves you. Eventually, I was moved by Ryan's persistence. He gave me the courage to fight fate, but the Millers wouldn't let me go. They even spread lies in the village, claiming Ryan had seduced a cursed widow like me. They dragged his name through the mud, making it impossible for him to stay in the village. The day he left, bruised and bloodied, he came to find me. I had good job offers, he said. I turned them all down to stay here for you. Will you come with me? At the time, I refused. I thought I was a jinx, that everyone close to me would end up ruined, so I coldly turned him down. I later heard he never got married. He'd been waiting for someone. That's why after I was reborn, I decided to cut straight through all the pain and go to him. And thank God, he was just as steadfast as I was. Just as it seemed, Ryan and I were finally about to get our happy ending. Even the others around us were starting to accept it, too stunned to argue. Mr. Miller nearly burst from rage. He exchanged a look with Mrs. Miller and Amy, and they instantly sprang into action. They rushed forward, grabbed me tightly and wouldn't let go. I don't believe you'd still say you don't want to marry my brother if you saw him in person, Amy shouted. You love him so much. Even if you back out, you owe us an explanation. That's right, Mrs. Miller added. Jason is still waiting for you at home. Even if you're really calling off the wedding, you need to make it clear to him face to face. Cut things off completely. As reasonable as their words sounded, I had no intention of going because I knew the moment I entered their home in a bride's dress, Jason would die. And if he died, I would still be labeled as the woman who cursed him to death. Nothing would change. I'd carry the same blame, the same reputation. Seeing that I wasn't saying anything, Amy tightened her grip and began dragging me away. Ryan wanted to help, but he couldn't very well raise his hands against a woman, so all he could do was stand in front of the door, blocking their path. Amy let out a sharp laugh. Don't think we're begging you to marry into our family. We just want you to speak clearly right here in front of everyone so the guests at this wedding know that you, Emily Carter, are the one who's fickle. You're the one who wanted to eat from one bowl while staring at another pot. You're the one backing out of a wedding on the big day and trying to marry someone else. She turned and pointed at Ryan. And you? Didn't all your fancy book learning teach you anything? Getting involved with a woman like Emily behind everyone's back. Have you no shame? Hearing all that, without the slightest hesitation, I slapped Amy Miller hard across the face. The moment my hand landed, I felt an incredible surge of satisfaction. If I was angry at anyone, it wasn't just Jason Miller. It was more at Mr. and Mrs. Miller and Amy. The three of them had known the truth all along, yet they still tormented me, clung to me like blood-sucking leeches. Amy was stunned by the force of the slap. It took her a while to process what just happened before she shrieked. You hit me? You actually hit me? My parents have never even laid a hand on me. What gives you the right? She raised her hand, ready to hit me back, but I kicked her hard before she could. You? I treated you like a real sister. And how did you treat me? You knew full well your brother didn't love me, but you said nothing. You just kept pushing me to marry him. What were you trying to do, really? Amy had never been slapped by me before. She had never even seen me this way. She was completely thrown off, frozen in place. I seized the chance and forced out a couple of tears. Everyone's wondering why I changed my mind. Why I got into the bridal sedan only to cancel the wedding. I'll tell you right now, it's because Jason Miller betrayed me. He slept with Lisa Tran. I wanted to forgive him. I really did. But then I thought, if this is how he treats me before the wedding, how will he treat me afterward? So no, I'm not in the wrong. The Miller family is. The Millers were stunned. They never expected I'd find out about Jason and Lisa. They were speechless, and their silence only confirmed everything I had said. Suddenly, the crowd started turning on them, criticizing them for being dishonest, for taking advantage of me. The Miller family became like rats on the street, scorned and avoided. Just as they were trying to slink away, Lisa came running toward us in tears. She hadn't seen what had just happened. Clutching Mrs. Miller's hand, she wailed. It's terrible. Jason heard that Emily called off the wedding and he spat blood. He's dead. He was so furious he died. As those words landed, the entire crowd exploded like cold water dropped into boiling oil. Oh my God, it actually angered Jason Miller to death. This has to be repaid with a life for a life. Honestly, it makes sense. What man could accept being jilted on his wedding day? That's too much. This wasn't just rage. It's like she cursed him. She's a walking disaster. First, her parents died when she was young. Now her groom's dead. Emily's cursed, I'm telling you. Lisa sobbed louder, clinging to Jason's mother. Jason, you died so horribly. The crowd was getting louder and closer, surrounding me with growing hostility. Ryan Carter quickly stepped in front of me, shielding me with his arms spread wide. His voice was firm as he shouted, Everyone stop. You can't keep feeding into this superstitious nonsense. Haven't you heard what the village chief said over and over? Fate, destiny, curses. That's all old feudal garbage. It shouldn't be believed, let alone spoken aloud. He turned to face them, his expression solemn. Emily and I have always been clean. I've liked her for a long time, but I've always kept it to myself. We never crossed any lines. We never even held hands. There was no betrayal here. And Jason, he was a healthy young man. How could someone like him die from anger alone? Something's not right here. You all need to calm down. Ryan's words made perfect sense. But no one listened. Everyone just kept whispering that I was a curse, moving farther and farther away as if standing near me might contaminate them somehow. Mrs. Miller and Amy looked smug, triumphant. They stepped forward again and grabbed me. "You have to come back with us," Mrs. Miller said sharply. "You need to kneel before Jason and apologize." Ryan tried to protect me, motioning for me not to go, but I gave him a reassuring look and said to everyone, "I'll go. I must go." This time, I didn't sit in the bridal sedan. Instead, I walked side by side with Ryan, leading the whole crowd back to the Miller home. The Miller house was still decked out with wedding decorations, the red banners and lanterns untouched, but there was no joy inside. All I could hear were waves of weeping and voices muttering things like, "What a tragic death," and "It's all that Emily Carter's fault. She has to pay for this." I pretended not to hear a thing and walked straight in. When the Miller family's relatives and friends saw that I actually had the nerve to show up, they all pointed at me and started cursing. "You still dare to come here? It's your fault. Jason's dead. You're cursed. You'll be a widowed bride for life. From now on in life, you belong to the Miller family, and in death, you'll be their ghost. What are you standing there for? Kneel down already." Of course, I didn't kneel. Instead, I pushed past the crowd, wanting to see Jason Miller myself. But Mr. and Mrs. Miller, Amy, and Lisa Tran quickly formed a human wall in front of the room, hand in hand. "You're not allowed near Jason. Even if he's dead, seeing you would disturb his soul. Kneel and apologize right now. If you hadn't gone crazy today and backed out, he wouldn't have died. Strip off his wedding suit and give him a proper beating. That way, this cursed woman won't be able to hurt anyone again. That's right. Beat her." The four of them blocked me tightly, insulting me as they did. I knew exactly what they were trying to do, just like in my last life. They wanted to beat me unconscious and muddle through the funeral, while I was still out cold. But I had no intention of letting that happen again. I pretended to kneel, then quickly turned around, grabbed a nearby lantern, and hurled it directly at Jason Miller's body. A series of panicked screams rang out as the lantern burst into flames on Jason's chest. The fire startled him awake, and he suddenly sprang up from the dead, tearing off his burning clothes and yelling wildly, "Help! Help! Emily Carter! Are you insane? Are you trying to burn me alive?" Jason cursed at me a few more times before realizing that his staged death had just been completely exposed. The entire crowd was frozen, stunned. Some people even collapsed to the ground, thinking they'd just witnessed a corpse rising from the dead. But no one was stupid. It didn't take long for everyone to realize Jason had never been dead at all. I ignored Jason's screaming and smiled calmly at the crowd. Now, do you all understand why I refused to marry Jason Miller? He was cheating before the wedding. That was bad enough. But then he actually faked his own death to frame me and ruin my life. Everyone here knows what kind of person I am. I have a strong personality. If I really believed he died because of me, I probably would have gone mad with guilt and dropped dead myself beside him. The crowd was furious. "Jason, are you crazy faking your death like that? What the hell were you thinking? Emily's telling the truth, isn't she? What's going on between you and Lisa? What was the point of pretending to be dead? What were you trying to pull?" Jason hadn't expected me to uncover the truth like this. He was clearly flustered but still tried to look justified as he approached me and snapped, "You're the reason for this. If you hadn't gone nuts and refused to marry me, would I have had to go this far? And you knew I wasn't dead. You still threw that lantern at me. You could have killed me. Do you realize that you almost burned me alive?" I didn't respond to Jason. I just took Ryan's hand and turned to the crowd. "I want everyone here to be a witness. I brought Jason Miller back to life today with my own hands. From this moment on, there is nothing between me and Jason Miller. And I'd advise everyone to be careful with people like the Millers. If you cross them, they might just fake their own death and try to drag you down with them." With that, I turned and walked away with Ryan. No longer caring about the chaos and screaming behind me, I brought Ryan back to my home. Since both of my parents had passed and his family no longer lived in the area, only a few neighbors showed up for our wedding. It was small and simple, but our married life was full of joy. Ryan took great care of me. The very next morning, He took over all the housework, kept the home spotless, and even made me 2 poached eggs for breakfast. It was a world away from my past life, where I was beaten unconscious and woke up cold and starving in a woodshed. At first, people thought that by marrying Ryan on a whim, I'd surely end up miserable and looked down on. But seeing how good he was to me, they all changed their tune. They said I had turned the bridal sedan at the last second and escaped a scumbag to find real love. As Ryan and I thrived, the Miller family didn't fare so well. Too many people had witnessed the scene that day. On top of that, I'd paid the matchmaker and sedan carriers double to speak on my behalf. They all shouted my story at the top of their lungs, turning my last-minute change of groom into a tale of me being forced by the Millers into a corner. With the entire crowd spreading that version, the Miller family became like the filth in a gutter, reviled and despised. They were basically reduced to rats on the street, hated by everyone. The factory manager, who had originally agreed to let Jason Miller return to work, began to hesitate. He ended up giving the job opening to someone else instead. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, already in poor health, were so angered by everything that they both fell ill. As for Amy, the marriage she had arranged with another family was immediately called off. The groom's side no longer wanted a daughter from a family where people faked their own deaths. Even Lisa Tran became the subject of ridicule. Although she insisted that there was nothing between her and Jason, no one believed her. No matter how she tried to explain, she couldn't talk her way out of it. In the end, she had no choice but to hide at home, crying day after day. Some time passed like this. Jason thought I would eventually come back and apologize. But what he heard instead was news of me and Ryan Carter living harmoniously as a married couple. Deeply in love, left with no other option, he shamelessly showed up at my home. He picked a day when Ryan wasn't home. He'd gone out to exchange some coupons and buy clothes for me. And Jason came looking annoyed, staring at me as he said, "Do you have any idea how badly you ruined my whole family?" I nodded. "I know, but you all brought this on yourselves. If you had taken our relationship seriously, or better yet, if your entire family hadn't staged a fake death, things wouldn't have turned out like this." Jason was stunned. He had never seen me speak to him like this. In my past life, I was always meek in front of him. "You actually dare talk to me like that?" he asked incredulously. "Is this because of what happened with Lisa? If you had a problem, fine. But did you have to blow it up like this? Because of you, Amy lost her engagement. I lost my job. And Lisa's name is in the gutter." I cut him off impatiently. "You really have no idea how infamous your family is now, do you? I've heard all of it already, so spare me the recap. Just tell me, why are you here?" Jason was seething, but he still forced the words out. "I'm here to make up. I know you're just angry. I admit faking my death was a bad idea, and I've paid for it. Isn't that enough? You've made your point." He paused, hesitated, then clenched his teeth and added, "I won't hold your thing with Ryan against you. Just come back to me. If you explain everything, maybe people will stop targeting me. All you have to do is marry me." To be honest, I was shocked he even said that. In my previous life, Jason never once admitted any fault. He thought he was some kind of martyr for pursuing true love. As for the pain I went through, that was my own fault for being pathetic. It was clear he had run out of options. I rolled my eyes internally and gave him a cold, mocking smile. "You may not mind being with me, but I mind being with you. First of all, I'm never leaving Ryan Carter to get back together with a lying coward like you. Second, stop twisting the story. I know exactly what happened between you and Lisa. She was already engaged to someone else, then suddenly turned up pregnant. You planned to run away with her, but didn't have the money, so you agreed to marry me, faked your death, and hoped I'd either kill myself from grief or become a widowed bride who'd care for your mealsome parents. That was your plan." Jason hadn't expected me to know all of that. He didn't even think to lie. He blurted out, "How do you know that?" None of us said anything. I narrowed my eyes, but of course, I didn't tell him I'd been reborn. Instead, I sighed and said, "Who told me doesn't matter. You wouldn't believe me even if I did tell you. But think about it. Only 5 people knew. Your parents, your sister, Lisa, and you. Your parents were desperate to get my money. Amy just wanted another maid around the house. You wanted to run off with Lisa. None of the four of you would have told me. So, who does that leave? Who secretly slipped me the message that you were only pretending to be dead? I fell silent after that and looked at Jason with meaningful calm. His face turned ghostly pale. After a long pause, he shook his head. No, I don't believe it. Lisa would never tell you that. It wouldn't do her any good. I didn't argue. I just gave him a small smile. What woman would want a man like you? Someone who can't take responsibility for anything? Look at how you're treating me now. How could she possibly believe you wouldn't do the same to her someday? It's fine if you don't believe me, I said quietly. But I suggest you go talk to Lisa yourself. I heard Jason went to the hospital and came back looking pale as a ghost. Word is he's been drinking brown sugar water with boiled eggs every day to recover. I also heard Lisa's engagement hasn't been canceled, and she's still set to get married next month. Jason didn't want to believe it, but he couldn't ignore it either. After hesitating for a while, he mumbled things like, Lisa wouldn't do this to me. She wouldn't abandon our baby. And then took off running straight in the direction of Lisa's house. To be fair, Jason wasn't entirely wrong. Lisa really didn't want to go through with the abortion. As her best friend, I took the initiative. First, I told her I forgave her, that everything was the guy's fault, and women shouldn't fight each other over men. Then, with carefully chosen words, I persuaded her to let go of Jason. Everyone knows about you two now. Are you really planning to have the baby and become a public joke? I even told Lisa that Jason had already abandoned her and the child. Then, I handed her some of my own hidden savings and arranged the abortion for her. So when Jason arrived, what he saw was a broken, devastated Lisa who had just lost her baby. I thought about it for a moment, closed my door, and decided to follow. There was no way I'd miss watching something this entertaining. I walked slowly so I didn't catch Jason's confrontation with Lisa's family. By the time I got there, I only saw Jason being pinned to the ground and beaten by Lisa's relatives. They punched and kicked him until he vomited blood, then left him unconscious on the ground. No one cared. They slammed the door shut like nothing had happened. Out of pure generosity, I sent someone to inform Mr. and Mrs. Miller. The two of them, acting half-crazed, rushed Jason to the hospital, but they couldn't afford the treatment. After getting kicked around trying to beg for help, they finally returned home, hoping to use their emergency savings, only to discover that Amy had stolen all their money and run off with a vagrant. The man she ran off with wasn't a good guy either. He'd sweet-talked her into it, but once the money ran out, Amy was likely in for a life worse than death. Originally, Amy had no plans to elope, but I went to see her ahead of time and with a mocking smile I told her, "Didn't you hear? Your brother's been seriously injured, and there's no money for treatment. Your parents already decided they're going to marry you off to an old man for money to save him. You're part of the Miller family, so this is your responsibility." That was the final push. Feeling cornered and hopeless, Amy chose to throw everything away and run off with the vagrant. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were furious but helpless. Left with no options, they went to confront Lisa's family. After all, they were the ones who'd beaten Jason. Wasn't it only fair they pay for his hospital bills? But Lisa's family refused. What beating? Don't make stuff up. We didn't touch anyone. Don't even think about getting money from us. Left with no other recourse, Mr. and Mrs. Miller shouted that they were calling the police. I don't believe you can beat someone half to death and get away with it. This is your last chance. Pay for Jason's medical treatment, and have Lisa come serve our family as compensation. Otherwise, be ready to end up in prison. Hearing the word police, Lisa stepped out of the house, pale as a sheet. Good, she snapped. Go ahead and call the police. Perfect timing. I'll tell them exactly what Jason Miller did to me. I'll report him for sexual assault. Let's see if he survives that. The moment the words sexual assault left her mouth, Mr. and Mrs. Miller froze. That accusation wasn't a joke, and they knew exactly what had happened between Jason and Lisa. If the police got involved, Jason wouldn't be able to avoid the consequences. Seeing the two of them go completely silent, the onlookers started putting the pieces together. One by one, the villagers laughed and jeered. You've got some nerve showing your faces here. Jason Miller's a scumbag. Getting beaten up was the least he deserved. One's a predator, the other ran off with a drifter. What kind of parenting is that? Good thing Emily didn't marry into that family. She really is a lucky woman to avoid such a cursed household. Hearing my name again seemed to remind Mr. and Mrs. Miller that I still existed. Forgetting all their pride, they turned and dropped to their knees right in front of me, sobbing and begging. Emily, please. It's all our fault. Every bit of it. But Jason is innocent. You loved him so much. You wouldn't really want him to die, would you? Yeah, you've got money, right? Just pay for Jason's treatment. He'll remember your kindness. Maybe you two can even patch things up, they pleaded. By tradition, Mr. and Mrs. Miller were my elders, and I was supposed to respect them, even help them up from their knees. But all I could think of were the countless humiliations they made me suffer in my past life. Frankly, this was exactly what they deserved. So I didn't move. Instead, I looked down at them and said coldly, "You brought this on yourselves. If you really care, stop wasting time begging me and get to the hospital. You might miss seeing Jason while he's still alive. I've heard his condition is pretty serious." Realizing I wasn't going to help, they scrambled to their feet, sobbing as they rushed to the hospital, terrified they might arrive too late. Both of them were already in poor health. Under the sweltering sun, emotionally wrecked and physically drained, they collapsed from heart attacks before even reaching the hospital. No one was nearby, and by the time someone finally saw them, they were already gone. Ironically, Jason's injuries weren't even that serious, just superficial wounds that looked more dramatic than they really were. Within a few days, he woke up and was discharged. Only then did he find out that his parents were dead. His sister had run away, and he now owed a mountain of debt from his hospital bills. While he was spiraling into despair, I quietly went to visit his aunt and uncle. I said, "If it weren't for Lisa Tran threatening your brother and dragging him into that fake death stunt, none of this would have happened. You have to hold her accountable. And maybe you haven't heard," I added. "Amy ran off with some drifter who's bad news. She's completely cut ties. You're all he's got left now." Jason was a walking corpse. He didn't know who to trust anymore. But when he heard that Lisa was getting married the very next day, he snapped. He screamed and bolted out the door. The next day, right in the middle of Lisa's wedding ceremony, Jason showed up out of nowhere. Holding a loudspeaker, he screamed into it for all to hear. "Lisa Tran is trash. Anyone who marries her is cursed. Look at me. My life got ruined the moment I got involved with her." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lisa panicked and tried to explain, but her voice couldn't compete with the blaring loudspeaker. Desperate to shut him up, she lunged at him to grab it. A sharp scream rang out. The speaker cut off. Blood spilled through Lisa's fingers as she clutched her face. Jason had disfigured her. The wedding ended in disaster. Lisa was rushed to the hospital, but the medical care wasn't good enough to restore her face. The wound left behind a scar the size of a palm, shaped like a centipede running across her cheek. The rest of her life would be spent bearing that mark. Her new husband divorced her soon after, not only because of her disfigurement, but because he found out she'd previously had an abortion. Jason was charged with intentional injury and sent to prison. 6 months later, Ryan got a job in the city and was ready to take me away from this village full of painful memories. Before we left, I took the time to visit Jason one last time. He was shockingly thin, almost unrecognizable. When he saw me, it took a moment before he could place my face. Then he started muttering, "It wasn't my fault. Lisa deserved it. Emily, help me. I'm innocent. I'm the victim." I smiled. "Innocent? You're far from innocent. Lisa didn't do anything. Everything that happened, I planned it all." Jason's eyes widened in horror. "What did you say?" "I wasn't there to be vague. I laid it all out. I'm the one who convinced Lisa to get the abortion. I'm the one who provoked you into crashing her wedding. I'm the one who made Amy believe your family was going to sell her off, so she ran away with that loser. And I'm the one who pushed your parents into such a frenzy they dropped dead of heart attacks. Every single thing. I did it all. And I did it because you deserved it." Jason's face twisted into something indescribable. Then he coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed on the floor. For some reason, Watching him like that made me think of my past self when I had learned the truth and broke down just the same. I must have looked exactly like this. I turned and left the prison. Outside, Ryan was waiting by his bike with my favorite pork buns in hand. I smiled and walked toward him, already planning how I'd share the good news. I was pregnant. From here on out, there would be only good things waiting for.